you fanboys and fangirls, as promised, as a follow-up to one of my shorts, I am taking the iPhone 15 story and I'm going to continue and expand on it in a much longer episode and explain to you guys the different scenarios and everything going on about the iPhone 15 supposedly having USB-C. And while I don't see the iPhone getting USB-C on the 15, I will say that the chances of it happening are more higher than ever. But you do have to know these few things before we even talk about that. Also on today's episode, the Nothing Phone 1 is not launching in the United States right away. I'll explain more details about that and why that might actually be a good thing. And lastly, we have some reports of the Google Pixel 7 and 7 Pro, of a new CPU, and new display technology provided by Samsung. All that on today's episode, so don't go anywhere, turn the quality up to 4K, hit that dial tone because Technoid starts right now. So the first story, the main story, the iPhone 15. Now it's crazy to think that we're talking about this because the iPhone 14 isn't even here yet, but if you guys haven't seen my shorts, I talked about this for 60 seconds because Shorts limits you to only 60 seconds, and that short blew up insanely. So thank you to you guys, and thank you to the new subscribers. But along the way, there have been a lot of people also questioning and bringing up other arguments, and that's why I don't like shorts, because you don't really get to give a lot of information. It's very vague. So that's why I've decided to take that and expand on it in this episode. So if you haven't seen the short, I encourage you to do so and then come back to this episode. But long story short, according to several reports, and based on reports in the past from John Prosser, it seems that the iPhone 15 is in a little bit of a lingo because according to reports on the heels of the EU, it seems that Apple may now be forced to implement this not only in Europe, but maybe in the United States. According to the report, it seems that several senators from the United States are proposing the same rule that the EU imposed for a one charger definition, just to make it more easier with also e-waste, simplicity, etc., etc. That's basically the gist of the news. Now, let's disclaim something right off the bat. I am in no way, shape, and form against this. I am all for the protection of the planet and also e-waste and all those things they talk about. But here's something you guys need to understand that go into that factor. There are three things that a tech company need to do before they can even consider e-waste: money, profitability, and sustainability. Those are the three factors, and I'll address every three of those points as we go along. But basically, to finish it up, and then I'll discuss and break it down, this is not a rule yet. This is just an idea proposed, but it looks like they will be making progress towards this in the coming months, as they will potentially pass a bill through the House that will then be taken up to the Senate, and then of course we'll see where it goes from there. So, as I said in my short, I am not a big fan of the government coming in and doing this, because first of all, this is only towards Apple. If you think this is to everyone else, you are mistaken, because who is the only tech giant that has a proprietary port and makes tons of money on this? Apple. So if you think that this is only for Apple, you are correct. If you think this is not only for Apple, you are mistaken, because every other company uses USB Type-C. That's number one. Number two, the government in no way, shape, and form should be regulating anything in businesses. They have a right to do what they want in terms of taxing and others, but to tell them what they should and shouldn't do, to me, I don't think that's fair. If Apple wants to use a proprietary out-of-date port, that's their decision. So I'm not the big fan of this. But again, there are people that like this, as it will control and help to, again, with the e-waste. But let's talk about that for just a second. You see, there's a misconception that people think companies really care about e-waste. That is true. They do care about e-waste. They do care about sustainability, but that is like literally the back burner. Now, in the terms of Apple, they have done a great job of marketing how they care about the environment. They've done a great job of making it the forefront. And while I do believe that they do care about the environment, they also don't really care. Look at the Airpods. If you say the Airpods are able to be recycled, you realize in order to replace just one Airpod, they physically cannot open those buds and reuse any parts. They have to dispose them and manufacture brand new ones. So they're unreusable. AirPod Pros are even worse because now you're using battery cells that are smaller. They can't replace the battery. They have to give you an all new part. Apple Watch screens are still in much limbo, but they've done a better job over the years of making them more reusable and renewable. But if you crack this entire screen of an Apple Watch, you can't reuse the watch. You have to get an all new screen. So What I'm trying to say is, while this is a great thing for the e-waste, don't make this the only argument, because there's more play. The thing that I'm talking about is money. Apple makes so much money on the MF certification program just on Lightning alone. Now, I agree, Lightning is outdated, Lightning is terrible, Lightning does nothing but lock you into Apple, and it's super unnecessary. But the reason that Apple has kept doing this is because of the MF certifications. Now, to be fair, they have opened their platform with Qi wireless charging, so you don't have to use a cable. But if you want faster charging, you need to use a USB-C to Lightning cable to get fast charging. Now, of course, we'll get into MagSafe in just one second, but the amount of millions they have made on the licensing program for Lightning is unbelievable. So Apple switching over to USB-C would not make them any money. However, though, now we're going to talk about MagSafe, because even if this rule gets going, even if this gets going off the ground, even if they are told you cannot use Lightning, you have to go on USB-C, do you really think that Apple is going to do that? No! They're gonna drop the port in favor of MagSafe. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're probably saying, oh, but that's a great solution too. You know, we're limiting waste. Again, MagSafe is proprietary because of the magnets. Granted, it is an open charger, but this is where it gets tricky, boys and girls, because MagSafe is already on the MF certification program. Apple has started accepting requests for third-party developers to get the 15-watt fast charging on a MagSafe charger they make. That's number one. Number two, almost all Apple MagSafe products have firmware. So they're slowly but surely working their way to getting MagSafe to be able to charge and sync between your phone. You can literally get a firmware update on a MagSafe battery pack to enable faster charging. So do you guys see all these things coming together? Even if they were forced to drop the Lightning ports, which again, I'm not the biggest fan of the government doing that, but I am in favor of them dropping the port, they will never put USB-C because there is no money to be made. They can make more money licensing their MF certification on MagSafe than just putting a USB Type-C product. Now, granted, it would make the product better, it would make the iPhones easier to use, along with iPads and Macs, but it would make them no money. Now, I know you're probably saying, but what about MacBooks and iPads? They have USB-C. That's because they're not the forefront of Apple's sales. The biggest sale factor is the iPhones. Now, I know I'm going on for a long time, but I'm going to get to this last part and then we'll move on to the nothing phone. But listen, while I've mentioned all these scenarios, while I've mentioned all these things, does that still mean that Apple wouldn't do it? And the answer is no. Apple would still consider it. It sounds crazy after everything I've said, but here's the thing. Because of the EU's ruling in Europe, Apple has to adapt not only to them, but they have to adapt to products in the United States as well. So the impact on the Europe rules also impact the United States, even if the United States were to do the same thing. So while I don't think Apple will make a USB-C iPhone for the 15, the chances of it happening have gone up. They have gone up, ladies and gentlemen. They have gone up more than they have ever gotten. So there is a stronger possibility now than ever. But do not hold your breath and do not believe for one moment that Apple doesn't have a plan B. And that is they've been showing it to our faces, MagSafe. Alrighty, since we're moving on, let's get to story number two. Story number two, keeping up, let's talk about the Nothing phone. Now, the Nothing phone, as you know, is a very interesting meme right now. Because, you know, a lot of people were saying, if you expect nothing, you'll get nothing. Well, it looks like you're going to be right about that because the Nothing phone is not coming to America. However, there is a lot to explain about this, and it's actually not a bad thing as you may think. According to the reports, it says here that the Nothing Phone 1 will in fact launch, but it will not launch in the United States first. It will launch in Europe to help build its awareness as a closed beta to help expand the phone, get it out there to more customers, and then once they've built up a presence, once they've built everything up, then they will work on a US supported device and then release that into the United States. Now, the specs for these phones are out there, they're using last year models, but the price is seemingly very well. Now, this is my thing. This is the approach that Karl P did when he had OnePlus. So I am actually okay with this because you're basically doing a beta. You're trying to make this phone have a presence. You want to build up hype. You want to build up surroundings. You want to be able to build this phone up so when you do launch in the United States, you can get some sales. So I'm actually not against him launching this in Europe. Had this been a situation where it was Samsung doing this, or if it was Google doing this, that's a bit different story. But this is their first phone. They haven't even gotten any market share yet. So I'm actually okay with them doing this. This isn't a bad idea, so I'd say play this one out. But next time, put a little disclaimer saying that we'll launch it in other areas first, then the United States later. That's just my thought. And last story, the final story, let's talk about the Google Pixel 7 Pro. Now, the Google Pixel 7 Pro was teased at Google I/O. We saw the back of the phone. It's going to be more RoboCop than ever. But now we have some first reports saying that the Google Pixel 7 and 7 Pro will be using a new Tensor chip, the second generation model. We don't know exactly what it will improve on, but early reports are indicating it will be getting an extra core for performance and an extra core in GPU. So we can see that they're going in this route of upgrading the performance and graphics enhancements. On top of that, they will also be using a new Samsung display that will go all the way up to 1440p and will allow for better 60 to 120 Hz refresh rate. Now, this is a great thing because the Pixel 7 and 7 Pro have to build up some hype, and Google showing off it at Google I/O was a very, very smart move. And while most people do, and I say this because I know there's a big audience for Google Pixel users, and they have slowly started building up an audience, and the 6 and 6 Pro have really been there. With all that being said, they are still struggling to get many people in. The 6 and 6 Pro are great phones. No one's buying them. And it's evident because carriers are now giving the phones away for free just so you can create a new line. It was a big marketing on that. I remember that news everywhere. So I think that by going in on new hardware and also building up hype by showing it off at the event is a good step in the right direction, and it will definitely play a big factor when the phone launches. So I'm excited for all the stuff that we've talked about in today's episode. Let me hear your thoughts down below about everything we've talked about. And that's it for today's episode of Technoid. Now guys, I really hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, hit the like button. If you disliked the video, you can hit the dislike button. That helps circulate my videos as well. As always, everyone, thank you so much for watching. I will see you all on the next episode. Have a great rest of your day, guys. Take care, stay safe, have a good day, and peace.